films first and to start to compare. But yeah, I'm started to. I don't know. I don't want to know too much about each film.
You prefer to be surprised.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. But on a first view, do you think there is a good range of different films?
Yes, it's yeah. I'm not familiar with all the films and directors, but it used to be, so I suppose so.
Yeah. You studied law and worked as a sailboat skipper. When did you decide to go into cinema, and how did that relationship begin?
Yeah, I don't know if I have decided still, but I had a lot of friends who they was painters or they was writers, and I tried a little bit of both maybe, but didn't really know what I could do the best. So I always been a little bit too wide. Mm-hmm. And I started at the law school, but that was nothing for me. I ended up doing the cabaret there. So always I was one leg into kind of art expression, one or the other way. And a friend of mine started to study film in Copenhagen. And I mean, that was not an option. I didn't know anyone who was a filmmaker or making films, study films, theory, whatever. But he inspired me and said, why not? It's an interesting and short story, so why not try? And there was no education in Norway, so I had to go either to, well, I could go anywhere, but abroad. So I decided I wanted to go to Stockholm, not to Copenhagen. So I started there, and then it developed. But I always knew that I wanted to make films and not just study theory. Yeah. But it's a good basis also to learn about the film theory. Yeah. And then it happened little by little. So it's hard to say when or if at all. I mean, it's a part of the big dialogue. I mean, I'm still making films, and I still like it, but who knows?
And out of the wide range of roles you have, like producing, directing, writing, what part do you enjoy the most?
It's very hard to separate. It's impossible, actually. I mean, I think the main, what do you say, idea about it is I don't think I could stand up every morning and direct the film. I'm not that kind of person. I mean, for me, it's how to get an idea and the best way to carry it to be a finished film. And I think it's good for me also to do different things. If not, I would be bored in a way. But if you break it down, maybe I work more as a producer than a writer and director. I mean, you always have to work as a producer to take care of your project, to finance it, to follow up the films I have done and like that. But it's really impossible to talk about the different jobs. I do it all in once in a way.
Do you tend to have the same collaborators from one film to another?
It depends. I very often work with the same people and like that, but it depends. I mean, I make a film, I would say, average time 3 years, every third year, and it depends if they are available, the same people, and sometimes it's healthy to change people also. It's safe to work with the same people, but it's also good and refreshing to work with others. So it depends a little bit. Sometimes we have a pause and I come back to the same people, but quite a lot of the same people I'm working with from film to film.
Humor is a very important element in your films, and despite the humor, the drama is still very present. How important is humor in life or in your stories?
I developed a kind of expression for my humor. I call it poetic humor. I don't hope it sounds too pretentious, but there is there is this humor you see and you forget it immediately, and it's the other humor I think I'm closer to, which I call then the kind of poetic humor. And for me, it's a way of understanding. You can divide it into two. It's a way of understanding myself and the people around me, the world, which is what to say. It's impossible for me not to see the humor in a lot of conventions, situations in life. How you try to construct your universe around you. How you want to be loved in a way, how you want to be respected, all that. I mean, it's serious, but it's also, you can see it in a kind of humoristic way. I mean, how small you are and how many odd situations you try to solve. On the other hand, it's a wonderful way of communication. I mean, even if you are dealing with, say, serious subjects, it's a very nice way of communication. People open up their guard in a way if you have a certain way of humor in your view. So for me, it's a good way of telling a story. It's even serious stories, and I think it's my understanding of myself and the world around me. It's impossible for me to see it also in a poetic, humoristic aspect.
It is. I find it very specific in your films, especially in Kitchen Stories and Horton, in the characters as well. They are cold characters, but at the same time you get very close to them. And I think part of it is because of the humor of how they are portrayed.
Yeah, and I think there are not too much dialogue in my films. I like to work out from a specific situation, which tells more than words sometimes. Of course you can do it through the dialogue also, but it's also very difficult to write good dialogue. I try to avoid it. I mean, you have to learn the people, the characters in my films little by seeing how they organizing their lives, how they react on things, and little by little hopefully you recognize also a lot of things, even if you are not coming from the, let's say, same society or living the same life and are at other stages in life, concerning ages or whatever.
We tend sometimes to generalize, and it's not too good, but would you say that there's a Nordic sense of humor? Because if we look at films of Aki Kaurismäki, for instance, there are similarities in the sense of humor.
Yeah, there's two ways of seeing that. I think you can say that, and you see it in commercials as well as in art. That is a kind of melancholy look upon the people and the understanding of ourselves. On the other hand, our films travels quite well, so that means that you have the same view other places also, but maybe the formal side of art expression are different from country to country. But I mean, you recognize it, the Nordic humor, so it exists other places also, but maybe we developed it and maybe it's closer to us from some beginning. I don't know.
I would like to know as well, when because you normally write scripts based in original stories, but you adapted Bukowski's Factotum. How do you feel about it? Is it a big responsibility to make an adaptation of a written novel?
I think it's difficult if, of course, there is something about a book if you want to adapt it, but if you are too respectful, I don't think that will end in any good art, because you can't, I mean, you have to make your own version, and so you have to respect it and have a, what to say, feeling for the soul in it. But on the other hand, when you start to develop or do the adaptation, you have to throw the book away, I think. There are probably other ways in, also people who are adapting books they really don't like, but they are so bad that the story is clear, so you can just, it must be better if you do it. That's the other way. Of course, I like Bukowski very much, and I think he's a great writer, outstanding. So for me it was, of course I respect him very much, and I find a very big place for him in American literature and world literature, I must say. But on the other hand, when I start working on it, I really have to make my own interpretation of his work. If not, it would be, and you can't film a book. I mean, you have to yeah, you have to focus on parts. You have to make it much smaller. Make choices, a lot of choices. So it's difficult. It's not easier than making a script from the beginning. Writing an original script is, of course, hard too, but I think there are different challenges, maybe.
So what are you working on now? Are you working in a story?
Yeah, I'm in the process of writing.
Beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Original story.
Yes.
I have to make 3 questions that we are going to make to all our guests.
We'll see if I
to make
can
a
answer.
survey. What's the future of cinema?
When you say cinema, you mean films?
Yes, films.
The films will exist, I'm sure about, but in which form, how to distribute it will change, and it's hard to predict how it will end up, or it will never end up, probably. It will develop all the time, so that is not a problem. I like to see it as a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where do you watch films usually?
Where do I
watch films?
Like a lot of colleagues saying, we are watching films too seldom at cinemas. I go to the cinemas and I love it, but I also watch it home on DVD, video on demand, on TV, of course. So it's both, I would say.
Do you request a whole setup at home with a projector and everything, or do you?
No, I just have a good flat screen.
Screen. And finally, what genre of film do you like?
What?
Genre?
I can't set up a list of favorites. I mean, I watch all kind of films in a way, and of course some maybe genres I like more than others, but it depends. If it's a good film, it's always interesting to watch.
Okay. And what inspires you from films?
I like to think, and I always said that the deepest seen films have nothing to, for me, telling stories through films has nothing to do with film. It has to do with real life, with stories, which can exist in books, in paintings, in films, of course, in real life. So my inspiration is from everywhere, I think, everyday life, but of course also films, but it's just a part of it.
Good. Thank you very much for your time. I think